Ever walked through a thrift store and saw something and thought, I could make something fabulous with that? Well, that's exactly what I've done today. Welcome to the Chic Show. The DIY Inspiration playlist is hosted by Loli D's Creations, Lady Red Crafting, and guest hosted today by the wonderful CJ DIY. Their channels Today's inspiration are planters, so I'm going to be using these two stamp sets from IOD and some tissue paper. I chose my little stamps and I'm inking them up with a black ink pad from Hobby Lobby, and I'm just going to stamp them onto this white tissue paper. Using a little bit of water, I'm brushing around each of these little labels, and then I'm going to tear around the edge so that there's not a harsh line. And because the tissue paper is very thin, you do have to be kind of gentle with it. Now I'm going to set these labels aside, and I'm going to pull out my little terracotta pots. So I have two that are the same size and one that's a little bit smaller, and I'm going to be applying these labels to the front. These pots were from a previous project that I never finished. I did dry brush them with plaster chalk paint. Now I'm applying DIY's liquid patina, and then I'm going to place down my labels to the front of each of the pots. And also, as you see, after I've placed down the label, I do go over it again with more liquid patina. This helps to smooth out any wrinkles and also helps to seal that tissue paper down. And you can't even see it. It looks like it's printed right onto the piece. Now, as they say, hindsight is 20/20. I wanted something printed onto this label, and I'm going to be using some little stamps, which I should have done before I placed the label down. So I'm going to try and do it on this rounded surface, and we'll see how it turns out. For this one, I'm applying parsley. And next, I'll do mint, and then finally, I'll do basil. I didn't have any of these fresh little herbs on hand, but I did place in some succulent plants. This is a little planter that I picked up at the Goodwill bins, I believe, but it was originally from Target. Even though it's nice and pretty, all white, I want it to make it look like it has been sitting out in the weather. So I'm using some of DIY's liquid patina iron paint, and I'm just brushing it onto the edges of all the bottom part and then also along the top part. And with this patina paint, you put one coat on and then you go back and add a second coat after the first coat is completely dry. Then with that second coat, you apply the patina spray. And the patina spray I have is the green spray. Now that I've added my second wet coat, I'm going to go ahead and spray that paint with the patina spray. After this, I will just let it dry and let it do its thing, and it gives this magical rusty appearance. Here's what it looks like after that paint and the spray has completely dried. Now I'm just going to add my little succulents to this little planter, and I think it has a lovely little aged look. For this planter, I'm just using a tin can, and I'm going to go ahead and drill holes into either side of it. And then I'm going to give it a couple of coats of DIY paint in mint chip. I also added this rub-on transfer from IOD. I can't remember if it's from the Brocante transfer or the Botanicals. I think it was the Botanicals. That would make sense since it's flowers. And I'm just rubbing this onto the can. Also on this project, I'm going to be using that same patina paint and patina spray. So the first thing I'm going to do is add on some of that patina paint all around the edges and a couple of other places around the can. I'll let that dry, and then I'll go back and add another coat on top, and while that paint is still wet, give it a spray with that patina spray. Now for this one, I did mix up a couple of other bottles of patina spray that I was trying to get some different colors to it. I'm not sure if it worked or not. I did get a little bit of a variation, so maybe it did. I just used vinegar, salt, and a little bit of paint. This one definitely turned out rusty and crusty. Let me know, are you into the rusty crusty look as well? This is probably my favorite project from today. This little metal wall pocket I found at the Goodwill bins. I first took it outside and gave it a coat of black spray paint, and now I'm using Waverly chalk paint in Dusk to paint just the front. And this did take several coats. I don't know why. This paint was very, very thin, so it did take several coats. I wanted to wet distress this one just a little bit, so I just used a wet wipe and went back and just wiped away random areas just to give it more of an aged look. I didn't plan this out very well. I distressed it really before I should have. But I'm going to apply another coat of paint to the front for this paint inlay. Paint inlays do have to be applied to wet paint. So you give it one coat of paint and let it dry, and then you apply the second coat, or your last coat anyway, and apply the paint inlay to the wet coat of paint. So once I get this on, I'm going to spritz that paint inlay on the paint side with some water and then lay it into that wet paint. I have had the best luck with my paint inlays if I just leave them alone and let them dry overnight. And I'm not always that patient, but they do seem to work better for me. Now, once I get that paint inlay down, I'm going to spritz it again with some water and then just dab that water off and kind of push that paint inlay down into that wet paint. Then the next day, once it's completely dry, I spritzed it with a little bit of water. Again, I'm kind of pouncing around with a rag, and then I will let it sit for a few seconds and then pull away that backing paper. You definitely want to seal your paint inlays. It's best to use a spray sealer and let that dry before you apply anything with a brush. Thanks again to Loli, Katie, and CJ for hosting today's playlist. Be sure and find their channels and the playlist in the description box below. Here's another video I think you might like. Thanks so much for watching. Remember to share the chic. Bye now.